YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. This was sent to me last night. I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as possible because my internet upload speed here is really slow. It would take me 2 days to upload this if it's more than 10 minutes. So, Australian developer Raylan collapses in property downturn. So, what is happening? So, one of the biggest developers in Australia, like Green Park Homes, like one of those big guys, you know what I'm saying? Madame Homes, like those big names, collapsed. Leaving. Group owes $500 million to creditors and leaves billions of dollars worth of projects in doubt. One of Australia's largest private developers has collapsed amid a severe downturn in the property market that hit sales and pushed up funding costs in the sector. Grant Thornton, Australia said on Wednesday that it has been appointed administrator to Raylan Group, which specializes in building, developing, and managing residential and commercial property in Sydney and the Gold Coast. It said that the group owed about $500 million, $345 million US, to creditors and had a pipeline more than 3,000 apartments in construction in pre-sale phase. So this is crippling for a lot of people that bought pre-sale, and this is going to hurt. A lot of people in pre-sale are going to have to get lawyers, are going to have to start getting their paperwork, getting their ducks in a row to find out now what the next step will be. The next step will be is to start creating some sort of a class action where people from each individual building could get together, or a mass class action where everybody that has dealt with the company or is in dealings with the company needs to get together, and there's going to be a team of lawyers that are going to have to work this out. Raylan is developing one of Australia's largest hotel apartment projects, a $1.4 billion Ruby collection on the Gold Coast. A fast-growing region on the country's east coast depends on large extent of foreign buyers. So remember, guys, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, especially those countries are competing for rich Chinese investors. They couldn't care less about the Australian proper. They couldn't care less if the Australian proper makes enough money to buy anything. So, in terms of operating business within Raylan Group, it is far as possible business as usual. We are working closely with the key stakeholders to identify and preserve value for creditors, said John Janani, managing partner Grant Thornton Australia. The collapse of Raylan is the latest in the series of builder-developers experiencing financial difficulties as a result of market slowdown, with Melbourne-based developer Stellar Group placed in receivership in June. A second profit warning in 3 months by Adelaide Brington, one of Australia's biggest listed building materials company, was another sign of distress in the country's building industry. On Wednesday, it downgraded its earnings forecast from $120 million, $120 million to $130 million for financial year ended 2019, and announced a $100 million impairment charge, blaming the slowdown in residential construction that was softening demand for building materials. Oh, of course. Well, if the housing market isn't driven by income, people's income, first-time home buyers, the whole shtickle that we've been talking here on this channel for many years now, especially in Australia for many years, you got yourself a little bit of a problem, because now you're dependent, and the country's becoming heavily dependent on foreign investing and high roller casino players to be flown in and given citizenship and all kinds of Mickey Mousing. Analysts have expressed concern about difficulties in the developer and real estate sectors following a huge apartment building boom over the past 5 years. Building approvals have fallen 21% over the past year, and now in their lowest level in 6 years, as developers pull back from new projects in response to a drop in demand, according to Australian Bureau of Statistics data released this week. Demand has been eroded by a combination of factors, including a sharp rise in property prices in recent years. Oh, well, you don't say, eh? Tougher rules, new taxes on foreign buyers, and tighter bank credit on mortgage for residential builders. There is certainly more bad news to come for developers due to the slump in apartment demand from investors and foreign buyers. They always, it's investors and foreign buyers. What about the Australian proper, eh? Tighter lending criteria at banks, growing numbers of buyers off-plan apartments who are not able and willing to complete purchases. said Martin North, founding principal of Digital Finance Analytics, a consultancy firm. He studied the property market. Residential property prices in Sydney and Melbourne, Australia's two biggest property markets, have fallen 14% and 10% respectively. They peaked in mid-2017. Both experienced price rises between 70 and 85% between 2012 and 2017, prompting a huge boom in apartment building. Regulators this year have eased restrictions on banks' lending criteria to buy, let investors. Well, they had to. They have to start lowering rates. They have to keep throwing everything they have in their toolbox, in their financial toolbox. They need to throw everything at this to see if they can keep this at least floating to a nice grounded halt, to a decline, and then a nice float, and then decline. They can't have it crash, because if they crash, it's going to reverberate through the rest of the English-speaking world. It's going to shoot across to New Zealand, make its way up to the UK, which is seeing about 24 to 26 months of ongoing month-over-month declines in London right now. But London is ahead of the game. London and the UK, like London in particular, though, and so is Canada as a whole, and Western United States have the jump on this many years before, way before Australia. It started around 2010. And then 2012, you started seeing patterns happening in Australia and New Zealand. And then I started covering Australia in 2014. Was it 14, 15? Yes, 2014, I started covering Australia. And then recently, up until almost less than a year ago, they started deleting all my Australia videos. Housing videos, too, that everyone made fun of me on and told me that the market was going to keep going up and that I was an idiot. And then all of a sudden, they've taken down so many videos. So it's like, why? Anyways, regulators this year have eased restriction on banks. We got that already. But analysts warn that it will take some time to feed through the construction sector, which employs more than 1 million people. You're looking at about 2 quarters to start to see the beginning of the construction sector. So you're looking at about 6 months to start seeing springtime. You're gonna start seeing salespeople throwing everything at the wall, saying it's springtime, and obviously organized real estate media is going to be telling people, and the mainstream media is going to be telling people, it's springtime and it's time to buy. It is springtime and it's time. It is spring. It's going to be spring in Australia in a couple of months, and you're going to start seeing everybody flocking to buy homes, and you're going to start seeing people they're going to start claiming that there's going to be bidding wars again. You're going to see it all over the news. Oh, bidding wars again, and then there's like 2 people looking at a property, and one guy wants to buy it because his aunt lived there, and the other guy wants to buy it because it's next to the house he owns. So you're going to start seeing a lot of fakery going on in the mainstream. Last year, or the year before, in 2017, we played the game called the Great Blame Game, right? We had a show on my channel. We're talking about the Great Australian Blame Game. Who's going to blame who? We had the Great Toronto Blame Game, the Great Canadian Blame Game, because it's happening everywhere where English is spoken. Why? Because there's free markets. Come in and buy our houses. Instead of like the old days where they would open a business in a mall, in a dead mall, and then just layer their money through there, pay their taxes, pay their employees, and basically kind of contribute to the infrastructure in a way, I guess, even though they're cleaning their money through layering. Now they're just throwing it into housing, and the governments, these Western governments are kind of turning a blind eye to it, knowing it's happening, and has been told it's been happening by their agents, and higher up, like police agents, have been saying, look, this is happening. Well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it at a higher level, and nothing gets taken care of. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. I'd like to know. Australian developer Allen collapses in property downturn. What does that mean? How do you guys feel about that? This is a big reverberation you're going to see spark across the construction sector. And not only that, it's going to start hitting places like New Zealand and poor UK. It's already taken a plummet. And parts of Canada have taken already a 15 to 30% to 40% plummet already. Subscribe, follow, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.